Hi, this is Jackie Cambridge from Cambridge Safety. Welcome to one of our short Take 5 videos. Take 5 minutes for health and safety. We're going to just have a really brief look at Legionella. Legionella, which is a bacteria. Legionella, it's a bacteria. It's naturally occurring. It was officially discovered in 1976, which is actually quite modern in the realms of bacteria. As a bacteria goes, it can survive in a range of temperatures. Some bacteria dies very, very quickly if it's too hot or too cold, but Legionella has a good survival rate because it survives at a range of temperatures, and its favourite temperatures are between 25 and 45 degrees Celsius, but it can survive between 6 and 60, and even below 6 it doesn't die, it just goes to sleep and then it will wake up again when it gets warmer. Legionella needs the right temperature, but it also needs some food, some nutrients. As it exists in water, if it's in your water system, if you've got any sludge or sediment or algae, that gives it exactly what it needs, some food to eat. Legionella is lazy. It likes stagnant conditions, stagnant water that's not going anywhere. It gives it exactly the things that it needs. So if you give Legionella the right temperature with some food and some stagnation, you've got all the ingredients for a Legionella outbreak. You can drink water with Legionella in it and it's not really going to affect you. It's the inhalation of the droplets, the aerosols, that's the problem. If we have chlorine in our water, we often put chlorine in the water just to try and get rid of bacteria and things like that and purify it. But Legionella can survive even if chlorine is present. So it has a long survival time. Even if that droplet of water gets out into the air, the water can dry up, but the bacteria survives. The legal requirements for Legionella are within the control of substances hazardous to health because they cover chemicals as well as biological agents. COSH is the law. We've got an approved code of practice on controlling Legionella, and that is now supported by 3 specific technical guidance notes. Legionnaire's disease is a serious lung condition, and it's caused by inhaling the Legionella bacteria, usually within those aerosols. Another disease which isn't as serious but is associated with Legionella is called Pontiac disease, but Legionnaire's disease is the one that unfortunately is potentially fatal. From an employer's perspective then, what do we need to do? If you've got a water system or anything where it's likely to be water that's contaminated with Legionella and there's a means of making those breathable droplets, you've got to carry out a suitable and sufficient risk assessment, not using your usual 5 steps, but looking at the specific issues that could increase the risk of Legionella. So temperature, nutrients, making aerosols. Once you've done your risk assessment, it's taking steps to either prevent or minimize risks. You could get rid of Legionella in your water system today. It's going to be back tomorrow. So we can take steps, but it's about managing it and minimizing the risk. You're never going to eliminate Legionella altogether because it's a bacteria. Have 1, it divides and becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. So what we're trying to do is reduce the spread, slow down the multiplication of the bacteria to reduce the risk. The Health and Safety at Work Act doesn't specifically mention Legionella and bacteria, but even before COSH came in, we have a duty to ensure, so far as is reasonably practicable, a safe place of work for our employees, a safe place for other people, so far as is reasonably practicable. So if we don't control Legionella sufficiently, there is a risk, and therefore we need to put in a certain amount of controls to avoid or reduce it. As well as COSH and the Health and Safety at Work Act, if you have a cooling tower, there is a significant risk of Legionella because you're going to have usually water at the right temperature and potentially it's going to be contaminated with nutrients. Each local authority will have a register where anybody who's got a cooling tower is registered so that the local authority can carry out checks to ensure that Legionella control measures are being taken. A few years ago, we had an outbreak of Legionella in Scotland, and that was very much associated with the cooling towers of some of the whisky distilleries because they tend to have cooling towers. From a legal perspective then, if there is a prosecution, it will normally be either under Health and Safety at Work Act Section 2 or Section 3, or the specifics of COSH, the Control of Substances Hazardous to Health regulations. Sources of Legionella then: pipes that haven't been cleaned out or have got corrosion in, shower heads where you don't use that shower on a regular basis, dead legs where we've got water sitting in stagnant areas. It can be in fire sprinkler systems, but tends to be reasonably low risk because it's contained. But dirty water tanks, air conditioning systems, anywhere you can have stagnant water, old pipes, water irrigation systems. Even you will tend to have a little bit of Legionella in your car wash bottle within your car. Because again, there's stagnated water. It doesn't tend to be a high risk, but it can exist there. If you're an employer, have we got the risk of Legionella? Have we got a hot and cold water system? Have we got air conditioning? Have we got cooling towers? If yes, suitable and sufficient risk assessment. In terms of hazards, is there a risk of nutrients in our water system? So sludge and scale, foreign matter, these types of things. Rubber and things like that might have deteriorated that make a sludge. If you see green in your water, that normally means you've got algae. Now, that is not necessarily Legionella. It won't be Legionella, but if you've got algae, that's really saying you've got some nutrients. So the likelihood is if there's algae present, there will be Legionella as well. Legionella needs three things: nutrients and the water to be at the right temperature. So between 20 and 45 is its optimum range, and the bacteria will multiply really quickly. Have we got any stagnation? Is there scope for so limited or low flow of water gives us stagnation? If we have water that's standing for long periods of time, dead legs, old pipes, sinks that are not used anymore, water conditioning, large cisterns where the water doesn't actually empty out, so you get the same water sitting there for a while. Long pipe work where, again, water can just lay. Anything which really stops water draining away. So Legionella, it likes stagnation, it needs the right temperature, and it needs some nutrients. Give it that, it's going to go forth and multiply. We know there are some hazards, so let's briefly just think about some of the things that companies can do to protect themselves, their employees, and other people. We can monitor the temperature, keep the water hot. So it's about keeping the hot hot and the cold cold. Trying to control and reduce the release of water spray because it's those airborne droplets that are a problem. Try and avoid water temperatures between 20 and 45 where we can. Avoid stagnation, clean out our pipes and our tanks. Try to avoid materials which harbour bacteria, things that are going to degrade and could be nutrients. Any spray outlets that we've got, let's clean them so we don't get scale on them, because that again is a nutrient. Water treatment, we can use chlorine dioxide and a variety of other chemicals to reduce the risk of the bacteria. A flushing regime for rarely used outlets. So for instance, if you had a hospital ward that was shut down for a while, we'd need to make sure that all of the sinks and the showers were all flushed before it was used again. We can add, as I say, disinfectants and chlorine, but again, we need to think about making sure we don't add too much because that could affect humans as well. Sure, our water storage tanks are of the right size so they do actually empty out fully and we don't get that stagnated water at the bottom. If you've got 3 storage tanks, making sure that each one is used, we don't use one all the time and the other 2 are left stagnating. Practical things that employers can do. The approved code of practice and the guidance notes from the Health and Safety Executive do provide a lot of information, but remember, approved code of practice, you've either got to follow it or do as good as or better. Controlling Legionella is protecting your staff, but it's also protecting others, because it's if those droplets get into the atmosphere, they can actually move around up to 2 miles and then still be inhaled and cause a problem to people. And if your immune system is already low, you are at greater risk from Legionella and Legionnaire's disease. That's a potted tour through the hazards and risks of Legionella, which is a bacteria that occurs in nature, but equally is more serious if it's associated with our hot and cold water systems, air conditioning and cooling towers. Thanks very much for watching. This is Jackie Cambridge from Cambridge Safety. one of our Take 5 Minutes for Health and Safety videos.